Growing up in slavery. Enslaved people who were forced to harvest crops were known as field slaves. Field slaves had to work outside for hours in the hot sun. Enslaved people who worked in the home were known as house slaves. Their work wasn't easy, but it was considered better than working in the fields. Minty's mother hoped Mr. Broadus would make her daughter a house slave. She didn't want Minty to have a difficult life in the field. But even though Minty was her daughter, Minty was considered the property of the Broadus family. Mr. Broadus would decide Minty's fate. Minty didn't go to school. It was considered a crime for enslaved people to learn how to read or write. But like many slaves, Minty's parents memorized the Bible stories told at church. Minty loved it when her mother told her Bible stories. Minty devoted her life to serving God as a young girl. Soon, she could recite Bible stories and long scriptures by memory. As Minty grew older, her father taught her about nature by taking her outside. Minty learned about many types of trees and plants. Minty loved it most when she and her father went outside at night. Together, they'd look up at the night sky as Minty's father explained the starry patterns. He was the first person to tell Minty about the North Star, the brightest star in the sky. He told her that people who wanted to escape slavery followed the North Star to freedom. Okay, true or false? Only enslaved adults were forced to work on plantations. Is that true or false? That's false. Children as young as 5 years old were also used as slave labor. Put to work. Minty was 5 or 6 years old when Mr. Broadus decided it was time for her first job. He sent her to work for the Cook family. She would check their muskrat traps. The cooks were mean. Whenever they thought Minty wasn't doing a good job, they beat her. Once Minty caught the measles and became very ill. But the cooks thought Minty was just being lazy, and they told Mr. Broadus they no longer wanted her to work for them. Next, Mr. Broadus sent Minty to work for his neighbor, Miss Susan. She was a new mother and used Minty as a babysitter. Minty watched, changed, and fed Miss Susan's baby, but Miss Susan never wanted to hear her baby crying. It was an impossible task. All babies cry. Whenever Miss Susan heard her baby fussing, Minty was punished. Now here's something to think about. How would you feel if you were sent away from your family to work for strangers every day? I know I wouldn't feel very good about that. Minty didn't like how Miss Susan treated her, but she thought her home was lovely. Minty liked to go from room to room and look at Miss Susan's fancy things. One day, Minty saw sugar cubes in the kitchen. She took one. It was a big mistake. Miss Susan was watching her. Enslaved people who were caught stealing, even something as small as a sugar cube, were punished. When Minty realized Miss Susan had seen her, she ran and hid inside a pig pen where no one could find her. But Minty knew she couldn't hide forever. After 5 days, she returned to face her punishment and was beaten so bad that she almost died. When Minty got better, Mr. Broadus sent her to work in the fields. Now that's the end of chapter 2. That was a hard one to read and probably pretty hard to listen to. Thank you for listening.